Doug, The Ohio State University has really a long history with aviation, over 100 years, more than a century. Tell me what the early years were like, and how did this get started?
Really how it started was back in 1917. The War Department picked 6 universities to open up schools of military aeronautics, and Ohio State was one of those 6. The cadets that came in and preparing for World War I would learn everything from aircraft construction through maintenance. They'd learn to fly them, they'd learn gunnery and aerial observation. The interesting thing to look back on is where the original airstrip that the university used was where the current site of Ohio Stadium is. And it was actually approved as an airstrip by Orville Wright.
Orville Wright,
Right.
the father of flying,
Exactly.
was involved in starting an airfield here.
Correct. He and Kettering, obviously being an entrepreneur over in Dayton and a business owner, was one of the university trustees at the time. So yes, it was important that he was involved in that. And I think one of the pictures I know was an aircraft on the oval. And that was actually flown in here by one of the Army generals at the time, bringing Kettering in for one of the Board of Trustee meetings. He was the first Board of Trustee member to actually fly into Ohio State for one of their Board of Trustee meetings and happened to land on the Oval at the time. One of the photos you can actually see, when you look at it, you can see some of the original buildings, being the original power plant, the original University Hall.
I tell you what, those are the early years, but it sounds like things grew to the point where that was no longer usable?
Right, well, that airstrip went away with the construction of Ohio Stadium in 1920. So it was between 1920 and 1940 where the university would use other airports around the community that would then fill in for the need that they didn't have on campus anymore. It was in 1942 that President Beavis, he had the foresight, I guess, to see the growth in aeronautics, both from a military standpoint and from an economic standpoint, that he felt that this should be an area that Ohio State begins to take a leadership role in. So he proposed the creation of 3 things. 1, a School of Aeronautics, a Department of Aeronautical Engineering, and an Ohio State University Airport. In May of '42, the Board of Trustees approved those 3 things. They started to build the airport in '42. The first plane landed here, I believe it was in November of that year, and then the first facilities, the hangars that we still have out here today, were actually completed in 1943.
In 1943 is when it was named after Don Scott. Who
yes,
was
it was. Don Scott was actually an All-American athlete in football, basketball, and track for Ohio State. Following his collegiate career, he was the captain of a bomber squadron during World War II, and he was stationed over in England. And unfortunately, his plane went down during a training mission in England, and he died during that accident. It was later then in 1943 that the Board of Trustees decided to name the field after him. A lot of people think it was because he trained here and all that, but he never flew here. The field was actually built after he was already in the service and over in Europe, but they did name the field in his honor.
And then what kind of functions did the airport serve during World War II?
It was at the time a private airport for Ohio State's use exclusively, and it was really for the military, the Navy training, and the civilian training program that they started here.
There were a lot of women
There were.
who trained in aviation here. And then I understand there was an organization also called the 99s.
The 99, yes.
What is it and why is it called the 99s?
The 99s is actually an international organization, so it wasn't here exclusive to Ohio State or to Columbus or to Ohio, but it's actually a women's aviation organization started by 99 women, which is where they got the name. And the most prominent one was Amelia Earhart. So she was one of the original 99 women that started this International Women Aviation Organization. And they are very strong today. I think they have 5,000 to 10,000 members. And today, we've had some excellent female flight students that have gone out and they're captains on airliners and really have made their way in the industry because they're recognizing the need to have more females in the industry.
That is just so interesting to me, the progression and the continuing of all kinds of different aviation programs. And I understand the university also has continued with the training of the pilots. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I know it keeps going right up through today.
Right. Yeah, actually, Ohio State, I believe, is probably one of 120 or so universities that actually has a flight education program. It's part of a larger aviation program that teaches everything from airline management, airports, flight itself.
And where do those students wind up? What kinds of jobs do they wind up in after training?
The students that are interested in the airport areas will go and work at airports like the John Glenn Columbus International Airport. They will get in there and work their way up through their system. We bring in a few of them back here too. Like myself and a number of us came through the program here. A lot of them will go to a company like NetJets here in Columbus and do a lot of the flight support. You know, the research side, Ohio State had the premier program in flight physiology for many years and seeing what the impacts of flight were on the body. Also in the development of some of the early simulators for flight training. Nowadays, every kid, I think, has grown up with a flight simulator on their computer or their iPad or something. But at the time, these were state of the art. Nobody had them, and some of the first simulators were actually developed here at Ohio State. And one of the later ones is actually in storage over at the Smithsonian. So Ohio State has been recognized over the years for some of the really cutting edge and leading edge research into aviation.
Well, that is fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing this with us, Doug. It's really been a pleasure.
Sure.